Hey, what's up, everybody? Good evening. It is Friday, and I'm so glad you guys could be here. I wanted to say a quick hello to Skylar, who was here early, to Chris Hope, who has been here for just a little bit, to Joe Blaylock, to Sunrise Water Media. I saw all you guys hop in just a few minutes ago. Let me see anybody else that I missed. Johnny D. Um, and yeah, if anybody else is in there, I hope you can say hello. Thank you guys for joining Speed Dial. This is the Friday show that I do when I'm not doing First Friday, which First Friday will be in, I think, 2 weeks. I usually have a guest on this, and tonight I do. I have a really good guest. And also, I just wanted to thank everybody for their patience because I had to move it two or half an hour later because Oz by Drone, apparently Australia does some weird thing where they are on the half hour in their time zones. So when we change time zones here in the US, or not time zones, time, Pacific time, standard time. No, what is that called? Daylight savings time. Yeah, when that happened, it would have put us exactly over the same thing. So he moved half an hour earlier. I moved half an hour later, and hopefully that's all going to work out. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. Hey, I see Wesley as the crow flies in the house, and I see Ben T as well, and I see Lake Pilot. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. I'm super psyched tonight. Speaking of Wesley, if you guys haven't gone and checked out the video that I posted earlier today of this guy as the crow flies, he is mountain biking at two different mountain bike parks here in town. Well, in Burnet, about an hour from here. One is called Spider Mountain, and one is called Reveille Peak Ranch. And man, he is like really fun to watch mountain bike, and it's almost as much fun to watch me crash my drone and Vinny Vinny not crash as often. But Vinny and I, who Vinny is my guest, he is Vinny with uh, Black Sky Creative. He's been someone who I've been working with for a long time. Vinny and Wesley and I went out to those two places on Tuesday, filmed a whole bunch of footage of Wesley riding a whole bunch of cool stuff, and then I kind of went through it a little bit each day since then, and picked out some of the best clips and put them together in a video. So if you get to go check that out, it was really fun. Yeah, it's not Wes, it's Wesley, Sunrise Water Media. Thank you. You'll probably meet him at some point because Chris from Sunrise Water Media is local here in Austin too. Anyway, and really, really had a great time that day. I did have Vinnie Fallico with me, who is, again, as I said, with Black Sky Creative. He's going to be joining us here in just a second. Vinny is a professional photographer, videographer, Part 107 pilot, Steadicam operator, works on commercials, films, industrials, all kinds of stuff. Really, really good guy, and helps me out occasionally. If you watch one of the videos that one of my videos and everything looks really nice and in focus and stuff, Vinny probably helped with it. If you watch one and it's all out of focus and it doesn't look very good, it was probably me or my son shooting it by myself. And by the way, it is my son's birthday today, so I shouldn't diss on him too much. He's out for dinner with some friends. He's going to be home a little bit later, so this all worked out. But thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and bring Vinny Falco in, and let me see if this works. Boom. Let's hope he pops up here in just a second. There he
Got
is.
it. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Hey, man. Good to see you again.
How's it going, man? How are you?
Been seeing a lot of you lately.
I know. Yeah, not the only time this week. So yeah, it's a good week then.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I don't know if you noticed, but Wesley's in the chat as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I saw. What's up, man?
And Doc Murdoch is in there as well. So awesome. Yeah, Doc, if you haven't seen the video, the mountain biking video, I think you'll appreciate it because it was a lot of FPV stuff. But man, I could have used your help when we first got there and we first started flying in those woods and in those trees. Even with the digital system, you don't have a whole lot of range once you get some trees or some rocks in between you. Vinny saw it happen again and again where I would be like,
Yeah,
I'm
it was
crashing,
it
I'm
was tight in
crashing.
there, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even some of the early shots along that road, once you went around the bend, the range just kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, it was all DJI digital system. Somebody asked earlier, oh hey, and actually Doc Murdoch is in. I want to say hi to everyone in Florida. There's a big meetup going on right now in Florida. Doc Murdoch is there. hadn't forgotten about that. I remembered it earlier that you guys were out there, but that's awesome. Hope you guys had safe travels. I think the official meetup starts tomorrow, so that's awesome. So Vinny, how's it going for you? What have you been up to this week besides going out and flying drones a bit?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Another day kind of in the saddle with everything, I guess. I did some drone work. I've been doing a lot of work with a company in town called Lincoln Ventures, and they're a builder here in Austin, and they have a couple projects that they're working on right now, and they're all high rises, and so I've done a lot of drone work with them. And they recently, this week, they needed some drone work done, and then also some headshots. So I went in there and yeah, did a little multitask this week, and yeah, so it's great. Got some good stuff, and so far they're happy with it. So
Well,
far so
and
good.
aren't you documenting a couple of buildings that are going up with the drone, like
Yeah,
doing shots?
yeah, that's
How
our.
does that work?
Yeah, it's been a good project. So far I think we've done 3 videos so far, and I go in probably every 3 to 4 weeks, and go in and shoot maybe like a 30-second video for them, and yeah, just kind of show the progress of the building. Usually throw in a couple aerial hyperlapses and stuff in there to kind of spice things up a little bit. And but yeah, just overall try to show the progress of the project overall, and it's amazing how fast they put this together and how fast it goes up. It's crazy. It's I know we were talking about this before, but you have a bathroom that you're working on, and it takes a year and a half,
Right, in your
and they
house.
put up a couple of stories a week. It's crazy. So it's amazing how fast it moves, and it's a fun project to be a part of. So
How big will the building? How many stories is the building going to be when it's done?
that's a good question. I actually don't know. I think it's gonna be like 18, I believe.
Oh wow,
Uh,
wow.
and they're on. Well, I'm actually shooting with them again next week, so I'll see the full progress of everything. But I think they're around 8 right now, so
Okay, so
making progress, but
about halfway
yeah, more or
as far
less.
as the
So
height, the structure. So
yeah,
what is your? I mean, I know this, but for the audience, what is your drone of choice for that sort of thing?
I kind of I guess the main drone is the Phantom 4 Pro. Um, I like that for yeah, it shoots 4K 60, and I think overall the quality is really good. The bit rate's really high, and you can shoot with. I don't usually shoot in the full D log, but I shoot in Cine-like, which is kind of a a mix between the normal profile and kind of like a D log, so you can have a little bit more flexibility in post. And yeah, so I use that kind of as the main drone, and then I always have the Mavic 2 Pro as my backup. And then if I want to do those aerial hyperlapses and more of kind of special effects and stuff, I'll bring in the Mavic and throw that up for a little bit and do a couple of those. So
Okay.
those are my two, and then trying to work in some FPV stuff, but I've had some hiccups.
Yeah, I
But
know
eventually try to get there, so we'll see what happens.
you had originally started building was it an iFly or a Flywoo? What was the brand of that first one?
The first one was a diatone Taycan or Taycan. I'm not sure how you
Okay,
pronounce it, but
Cinewoop
yeah,
with the ducted
yeah.
propellers.
Mhm.
Um,
And
and then that one had lots. Tell a little bit about the problems you had with that
yeah,
one.
man, it's been a hell of a process. So I think the DJI FPV is going to solve a lot of problems for a lot of people that are trying to get into this, hobby and an area of cinematography, I guess, just because it's the there's so many barriers to entry, and the learning curve is just crazy. There's so much going on, and it's like I feel like I'm an electrician now after building these things. It's crazy. So
All the
uh,
soldering and wiring
yeah,
and
and
circuit
having
testing.
yeah, exactly, and knowing all the battery levels and how to charge and what to use where, and making sure you're not blowing out flight controllers. And yeah, there's a lot going on, and I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it now, but I still probably have like another day wrapped up in this last build, and then hopefully I'll be good. But we'll we'll see. But yeah, the diatone Taycan, man, I saw so many good reviews online on YouTube and stuff, and that was the first one I got. I built everything. I thought worked great, but I was talking to you about it, where it was flipping over on
Yeah,
takeoff.
I saw that.
I spent 2 weeks trying to figure that out, and then finally, after a bunch of emails with the manufacturer back and forth, they finally determined that it was a bad flight controller. So I spent
Wow.
2 weeks trying to sort it out. I thought it was my fault because I just don't know what I'm doing
Yeah, it
with
was your
with this
first
new
time
stuff.
doing a build, first
Yeah,
build,
so
right?
it's like I just assumed that it was my fault, and rightfully so, because I'm still so new to this. And to find out that it was just a bad part was pretty frustrating.
Well,
So
and then you ended up getting a squirt, right? You got
yeah,
a squirt. So and
that's the build that I'm working on now, and yeah, have it all together and everything's good. I just this last week and a half I haven't had a lot of time to put pretty much all I have to do is run it through Betaflight and put the props and the ducks on. I should be good to go. Everything else, I've plugged the battery in and done a little bit in Betaflight, so I had nothing blew up or anything. So far so good. But we'll see if I can take those last couple steps here in the next week or so.
and you're putting are you putting air unit in it, or are you putting a Caddx Vista?
Yeah, doing the air unit.
Okay,
So.
okay. Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, you already have. I know you have the original DJI goggles, right? And
Yep.
and are you using the DJI controller or a different controller?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, using their controller. That's just kind of before I was getting into this. I obviously did a bunch of research trying to figure out what made the most sense, and just having that visibility with DJI just seemed like a kind of a no-brainer. And
it's very easy. Very easy to bind, very easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it already has the receiver built into it, so you don't have to put a separate receiver in. So there are some upsides
takes out
to
a
it.
couple steps, which is great.
Yep.
And then I was relatively familiar with the controller. It's kind of more or less like a Phantom controller. I hold it a little bit different when I'm doing FPV. I kind of do the pinch style, or what I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more or less the same controllers, same configuration, and I didn't have to relearn too much, so that's a good thing. So
it does look a lot like a Phantom Phantom controller, and of course now the new DJI FPV controller is more like a video game style.
Yeah.
So you had a chance to fly. Let me grab it real quick. Hold on, you'll still be able to hear me, I think. But I'm going to grab the crown. You had a chance to fly this guy a little bit when we were chasing Wesley around. So let's talk about the challenges we had with this, because I feel like honestly, of all we flew. We had the DJI FPV, we had your Phantom, we had the Emax Baby Hawk 2. That was that little tiny one I was flying with the 360 or the Insta360 on top of it, and I had my newbie drone 6S, and we had this. I felt like this was the one that was the most challenging. And what did you think?
Yeah, I didn't fly any of the other ones. I just had my Phantom up, though. I think that was, well, I guess I flew the DJI FPV as well. But yeah, I was mainly on the Crown, and I flew that. I think the last time we shot, I flew it around a little bit, and I really did like it. But particularly this week when we were out doing the bike work, it was pretty windy.
Yep.
And it just doesn't quite have the power to cut through that. And so I was almost, pointing almost straight towards the ground, trying to fly forward. I was pretty much just staying where I was. So it wasn't, it just didn't have the power to cut through. And it's still a 6S.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of surprised, a little bit bummed, obviously, but it was hard to get where I was going when that wind was blowing that hard. So.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Artco Drone Solutions in the house. I think he's in Florida as well. So good to see you, Art. The weird thing was with this guy, I felt like the wind really put up a fight against it the whole time. The whole time we were flying it, and I guess it was pretty windy, especially when we went to the second location. And then the other thing we kind of learned, a little lesson from doing this was this TPU mount. It's too angled. Like for a bicycle rider, like if you were chasing a race car, that'd be great because you're going to be way over like this. But for a bicycle rider, you're not tipped over that far. And so a lot of the shots that I got with this and that you got with this were kind of above the subject. So And then I don't know if you saw this, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you
This
cracked two, right?
I
Because you
cracked
had
I cracked the lens. I cracked the lens on one, and I cracked the screen on
the
the
back.
other. Yes, it was a rough night for action cam or rough day
Yeah,
for action cameras.
I'm gonna have to buy some more GoPros. It looks like.
Yeah, well, this is the Osmo Action. I have two of them, and I've always really liked this camera. I think I can get this repaired, honestly. But the nice thing is, even though I cracked the lens cover on the other one, these lens covers just unscrew, and so I was able. I say they just unscrew. Yeah, they just unscrew, and I was able to replace the lens cover on my other one. I had a spare one, but no, it was so much fun going out there that day. So the other thing that you and I had talked about a little bit earlier, and I think Wesley would agree on this, is I wish we had had some walkie talkies because
Yeah.
one of the things that is really hard to do with an FPV drone is to hover and kind of wait in place while you're waiting for, especially if it's windy, while you're waiting for somebody to start or whatever. And I think there were a few times where you had your Phantom up in the air. I had my either this guy or the newbie drones or whatever somewhere waiting, and then Wesley was waiting on us to go, and we weren't able to communicate because we were pretty far apart from each other. So like walkie talkies or flare
Yeah, I
guns
think
or
it's definitely a good idea to have some kind of comms, just to be able to obviously communicate and let everyone know, what page they're on, because especially, with the FPV stuff, it's you don't have much of a window. Batteries last 3, 4, 5 minutes, whereas the
right.
Phantom, it's 20 or 25. So I can kind of sit up there and wait for the shot, and then once I saw him going, I could kick it into gear and and follow him and try to get the shot that I needed. But with the FPV, it's kind of like you got that one shot, and if you need to reset, you almost need to like come back, land, save battery, maybe get another take or two, and then you gotta pull out a battery and reset, and
Yeah, yeah. There's
so there's a lot more going on with FPV. So
you have to be efficient. I also was super impressed with the Phantom footage that you got. So if anybody, if you guys haven't already checked out that video, it's the latest one I put out earlier today. It's called like DJI FPV chasing a bike or something like that.
yeah, that was cool.
Um, some of those Phantom shots you did where you were tracking sideways. Did
Mhm.
you notice? Did you know that? I mean, I know you knew that light pole was or that power pole was there, but you went right behind it. Did you realize you were going that close to it?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of times when I found out, I figured out what the run that he was going to do. I ran it a couple of times just to kind of, practice my move, and I didn't have a visual observer because you were doing your thing, so I kind of just, okay, well, if I'm this far away, I'm going to miss the pole by this much, and once you're in the shot, you can't really look up because you don't want to miss the shot, so
Right, right.
you got to lean in pretty good and just hope you're right. So, and I luckily I was.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what shot I'm talking about, where you tracked him really well from the side, and then all of a sudden you just see the pole go by right in front of the camera, and you were probably 20 feet away from it or so. But I have to say that shot, and then there were another couple where you were kind of rounding the corner with him. He was coming around the
Yeah.
corner on his bike, and you kind of did a nice round. Pivot with that, and that's just practice, right? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's just a practice thing. When I first started flying, on like maybe the first job or two, I was trying to use those following uh, commands, I guess, where you tap and you highlight, and then it tracks, and then you can kind of move it from there, and the drone kind of does the work. And very quickly, I found that if and I think it's gotten better, but if there's a tree that gets in the way, and I'm a big fan of using foreground in your shots and trying to have that because in that shot there were trees that kind of went by, and so you know if you lose your subject for a second, usually it'll turn off, and so you'll totally miss the shot. So very quickly
Yeah,
I
yeah.
realized, okay, I need to I just need to practice more. So yeah, it's just a matter of, spending some time on the drone and trying to follow things around town, or if you have a buddy that is in a car and you're obviously in a safe space and whatnot, and you can practice doing moves around them, or a bike, or obviously something that's moving. It's just good to get some practice in and kind of work on those tracking shots, as opposed to kind of letting the drone do the work when it's not always super dependable.
Well, and again, if you guys watch this video, you'll see the shot I'm talking about. It's Wesley comes down, he makes a left around a corner, and the drone just kind of follows that radius perfectly. It was a really beautiful shot. I want to give a quick thank you to Joe Blaylock for the super chat, the 1234 super chat. I appreciate that. And by the way, he says that he's trying Velocidrone. That is the one simulator I actually haven't tried. I've done liftoff and I've done DRL. Those are really the only two I've ever tried. But I've heard good things about Velocidrone, and it'll definitely help you get better at flying FPV. Oh, also want to say hey to Brad. Good to see you, Brad. My brother from Virginia, and Jaybird Drone in the house as well. So Vinny, the one thing that we haven't talked about as far as that entire shoot goes, that is kind of the big topic as of late, although it's been done to death. But you're a camera drone guy traditionally, right? You're getting into FPV. What do you think of the DJI FPV?
I think it's amazing for kind of what it is right now. I think it's a really great crossover from camera drones to FPV, because I feel like there's such a gap, and like I mentioned before, just the learning curve and just everything you need to learn to be able to get one of those up in the air is just a lot. And I think the DJI FPV really solves a lot of those issues. And yeah, it's just, it gets rid of all of the charging problems that people have, obviously building and soldering. It's a DJI product, so it's built well. It comes out of the box. There's a couple of things you have to set up, but overall, it's pretty straightforward. And I think it solves most, if not all, of those problems that really I've ran into. I guess the only thing, I don't know if I'm still kind of on the fence about getting one. The only thing that I'm mainly concerned about is the camera quality. So I've been going back and forth, like, if it makes sense to get one based off the camera that it currently has, or maybe I can get my GoPro and strap it to it and then run real steady through that. And I don't know. So I'm still kind of debating if it makes sense to get one.
Would you want to use it for what would you want to use it for in terms of the camera quality? For stuff like we were shooting with Wesley. Is that kind of the use case?
Yeah, I think exactly. Shooting that kind of stuff where it's quick moving subjects. Downhill skiers. That kind of thing. I think would be great for it. And I think the quality as of right now, from what I've seen, it seems like I have the GoPro 9, and
oh yeah, the GoPro 9 is pretty amazing.
It seems pretty great. Also, I got a stack of NDs for it, and that kind of helps bring the overall ISO and noise down. So putting NDs on the GoPro and then running it through real steady, it seems like that's kind of a winning combo as of right now. But again, I haven't been flying much, so I still got a lot of work to do. But yeah, getting back to the DJI FPV, I think it solves a ton of problems, and I'm really excited to see what they do next, because I think it's only gonna get better.
Yeah, and again, for people who are wanting to, we've talked about this, but for people who are wanting that more of the freestyle bando bashing experience, that's not what the DJI FPV drone is for. But I think anybody who watches that video we did, a good chunk of those shots was the DJI FPV. A good number of them, and so I don't know. It was also really cool. I don't know if you noticed, but on a lot of the shots, you would see one drone pass in front of the other one, which
that was awesome.
I'm kind of surprised we didn't hit each other, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know how that didn't happen, but
hey, I want to give a quick shout out. First of all, say thank you to Artco Drone Solutions. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Say hey to Harley FPV And then I know that Oz by Drone must have just wrapped up because a whole bunch of people just jumped in, and looked like we have some new people, some new Australians, some new Aussies. Welcome.
Great.
So thank you guys, and Greg, thanks for sending people over. I appreciate that. Um, Getting back to the DJI FPV for one more question. Now you were flying it in sport mode, and I think in sport mode you can actually do a lot more than you can in sport mode on a traditional camera drone. And by that I mean it doesn't. It actually in sport mode, it will give you warnings that you're near something or that you might hit something, but it doesn't slow you down or stop you. So you can
Yeah.
fly through tighter spaces. And then you can kind of do that a little bit more of that banking, rolling kind of stuff with it in sport
Yeah, that's
mode.
cool.
Did you find sport mode holding you back at all when you were flying it in that, or you know?
I guess maybe yes and no. I feel like coming from kind of the camera side, the camera drone side of things, I think it was liberating to be able to, like you said, get a little bit closer to objects and cut a little bit closer, and then also, like you said, when you're banking, that's it would just stabilize that on my Phantom, but with the DJI FPV, it allows you to do that bank, and I think that's cool. I think it adds kind of a new dynamic to the shot, and yeah, it's a new look, I suppose, which couldn't really be achieved prior. Um, that being said, I did find myself like a couple of times, wanting to kind of duck down and chase. And when I did that, it was just really just moving me forward as opposed to being in full acro where I can dive
Yeah,
down.
where you could actually point the nose down and do that.
Yeah. So sometimes I felt, I kind of saw in my head what shot I at least would like to try to achieve. And I would go for it, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I can't. I'm in sport." And so it was good and bad. I guess I could see both sides.
And we didn't
I don't know if that's
really.
a good answer.
No, it's a great answer, and that point about being able to put your nose down, kind of like what you can do with the regular with any FPV quad in sport mode or in acro or manual, is you can take it up and you can point straight down, go straight towards the ground, and then kind of pull out.
And then
That's how
pull
they do
out.
those
Yeah,
diving the sides of buildings and such. Um,
yeah, exactly.
we didn't. I mean, we crashed this guy a lot.
Yep.
I crashed this guy a
That
lot.
was
Like I said,
mainly my fault.
I broke this
Yeah.
one here. I did crash the Emax quite a few times. I did crash the newbie drones a few times. We didn't really crash the DJI FPV though. I mean,
No, I think luckily we held strong and yeah, didn't
well, and
crash.
and in fairness, the runs we were doing with it were more open. They didn't have as many trees and stuff. But there was a part where we went down along that ridge. It was along the highway. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the end, there were some trees, and Wesley kind of rode into the trees, and I followed him. And then I went up, and I didn't realize there were power lines right there. Those power lines were parallel to the road, and then they kind of cut over. They must go into the park, right? They cut over that trail, and where I went up, I was probably 5 feet from them. I
Oh man,
saw
you
this.
watch it go by the screen real fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, there's power lines. That was close.
Yeah.
Um, well, so one of the things I think people are here and interested in from you is you started several years ago selling drone stock video online, right? Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that, why you got into doing that. If you recommend it, and if so, is it hard? Is it easy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, like you said, I got into it, gosh, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, something at this point. But it's been great. It's definitely not a get rich quick scheme or an overnight success or something. It definitely takes a lot of time and a lot of work. But I've come a long way with it and have a couple thousand clips that I sell on multiple different agencies, multiple different sites, and it's gotten to the point now where I'm making, between probably 1,500 and $2,000 a month passively from it. And again, it's not, it's not
It took you 3 years to get there, right?
yeah. So it takes some time. And like I said, I have a couple thousand clips up there, so it's it's a lot of work getting that stuff up there and editing everything and cutting everything up and uploading it and then inputting all the metadata and doing all that. So it's definitely a lot of work, but again, it's passive, so it only builds upon itself. And once you do the work once, you never have to do it again. So it's pretty encouraging, especially obviously last year there was a good chunk of time, I think a lot of people, where we weren't, production was shut down. I wasn't doing much, and I still had that money coming in every month. And I don't know who was making projects in March and April of last year, but apparently someone was.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean, they couldn't
it
go
was
out and
definitely.
shoot as much, so they probably needed more stock.
Yeah,
That might have.
yeah, it's true.
So what as far as if someone wanted to get into doing that, selling stock, what are some of the more popular shots that you've taken? Like what themes do you find are people like to buy? Like, is there a certain type of shot that sells better than others, or?
Yeah, there's a couple that I have that have done really well, and I've gotten lucky for it. There's a couple of Austin um, that have done pretty well, and in overall, I feel like skylines tend to be really popular. It's kind of a good establishing shot if a company is doing a video in Dallas, Austin, wherever, and they need that one drone shot as an establishing shot, and they don't want to hire an operator to go out and coordinate everything and get everything lined up and get all the waivers and permits and insurance. They can just pay a couple $100 and get that shot and then move on with the project. And
So
so
skylines are a
yeah,
good one.
yeah, skylines have definitely paid off. And hyperlapses, I've been doing a lot of those. I got the Mavic 2 Pro more or less when it came out, and so I've just been shooting a lot of hyperlapses, and I feel like that's kind of a gap in the market. And yeah, a lot of them have done really well. There's some that have never been clicked on and never sold, but that's just kind of the game of stock footage. You don't really know what's going to sell. You just keep creating and hope something hits. So
Well,
that's
so
kind of what I've
so
done.
So, speaking of the hyperlapses and such, I know you do something a little special with your hyperlapses. You don't just tell the drone. I mean, you don't just say go do the hyperlapse and then take the file that it makes and put it online. What are your And this is more just kind of a hint for the folks in the audience. If you want to make a really good hyperlapse, a really high quality one, what's the Vinny recommendation?
uh, I kind of go the long drawn out way. Usually when I set everything up, I'll do kind of typically a waypoint. Hyperlapse is the one that I typically use the most. Sometimes I'll do circle, but usually waypoint tends to work best because you can make the movement a little bit more dynamic as opposed to just flying straight or just flying up. You can kind of set a lower point to the left pointing this direction, and then set another point up here so it's turning, it's rising, and then maybe the camera points down too. So you can add multiple axes to one specific hyperlapse. So I guess the movement is maybe the first point. The second point would be, instead of just taking the the HD version that the Mavic 2 Pro would kick out to you, I shoot in RAW and then drop that into Lightroom and edit those photos and put it all together in post and then stabilize it myself.
So if it's
And
a if
so
it's a let's say it's a 10-second clip and it's 30 frames per second, let's just say for argument's sake, or 24 or whatever, it's like 240 photos or 300 photos or something like that, and they're all raw and they're all pretty big files. What do you do with those once you have them?
yeah, so I kind of have a folder structure that I typically use. I usually, I'll drop all the raw files into just a raw folder, and then I do everything in Adobe, and you don't have to, but that's kind of my work process, I guess. And so I'll pull it in a Lightroom, and then I'll edit all those photos. And you really, as long as, I guess this goes down another rabbit hole, but as long as the light is staying constant on from the whole shot, you really only have to edit one photo, and then you can copy and paste those settings for the whole shot. So
Okay.
that definitely saves some time. If it's like a sunset or sunrise time lapse, that's where it gets tricky because the light's changing over time, and so then
You
you have
might
to
brighten it as the scene gets darker. You might brighten
yeah.
it a little
So
bit.
yeah, if you're changing things over time, then
You
you
have
have
to
to use
do it in increments, right? Because if you do it all
yeah
at once, it would be
then it
really
doesn't work.
obvious. Yeah.
And then you have to import that. Instead of going to Lightroom, you actually have to use a program called LR Timelapse. I don't know if you've ever
Ah.
used that before.
No, but I'm
It's
gonna make a
another
note about that. That sounds cool.
yeah, it's another program, and it basically keyframes it keyframes parameters over time. So as opposed to if you were to make if you were to stop down a quarter of a stop, instead of you would see that getting dark very quick and you would notice that flicker. Well, what LR time lapse does is it keyframes those parameters over time so that it's a steady change of
Okay.
light to either dark or light. So that's a whole another thing. But if you're just in Lightroom, the light's staying constant the whole time, then you just you just edit one photo, and because it's raw, you have a lot more dynamic range and detail and sharpness and all of that. And so you can go in, and overall the image is just a lot more flexible than video. And so you make those changes on the first shot, you kind of copy and paste those, and then I'll export that as a sequence. And then I'll pull that sequence into Premiere and then put that together in Premiere. Make any other subtle color corrections if I need to, and then stabilize in Premiere. And if I really need to, then I'll stabilize using After Effects. So it's like
Oh wow.
there's a lot going on. So, but
You, you know
it just depends on the shot. So.
what would be really cool to see, and I think you've showed this. So full disclosure for everyone, Vinny actually has an entire class about making money with your selling stock drone photography. If where is it on Black Sky Creative, or how would people get to that
It's on
class?
my personal website. So the little plug here, it's vinniefallico.com/courses is the landing page.
Okay.
And I actually have an interview with you on there a while back, and kind of the intro video and a course outline and reviews and all that stuff on there. So
Yeah, and it's not for everyone, but it is something where if you chip away at it, if you have a passion for it, and if you take the time to differentiate yourself, as you said, over the course of 2 or 3 years, you've been able to build a passive income from it, selling this stock, and also doing things like taking those extra steps to make those hyperlapses look that much better. Not just kind of doing the default. One of the things that Vinny does in the class, I believe, if I remember, because I actually took the class, was you showed a hyperlapse. I think you did this. Or if you didn't, we should totally do this.
yeah,
A hyperlapse straight out of the camera or straight out of the drone. Like,
yeah,
here's the MP4 that it created or the MOV or whatever. And
yeah.
then you showed one that you did all that work to and put them side by side. And you can totally see the difference, the saturation and the colors and the stability and all that stuff. You might look at the original and say that looks pretty good. But
Yeah.
then when you see the one that's been worked on, it's like, wow.
It's a big difference. Hopefully.
So what was the name of that program? What was the name of the program you said? VR time lapse or
LR time lapse.
LR? So Lightroom, like Lightroom time lapse.
Yeah,
Is
more
that
or
what?
less. Yeah, it's
Is it a
another program.
is it Adobe?
It's not Adobe. It's just
Okay.
I don't even know where the guy's from. It sounds like he's from, I don't know, like Eastern Russia or something. I don't know where he's from, but it's just his program, and I think he's been working on different versions of it for years now. And I use it a lot for not only for drone work, but just on the ground shooting time lapses and doing day to night time lapses and all
Huh.
of that. So it can get a little hairy sometimes, but it's a great program, and it's amazing what you can do in there.
And what's the advantage of it over regular Lightroom? It just allows you to do it over the time period, like from
Yeah, so
A to B.
exactly. So if you're changing parameters over time, so if you're stopping down, if you start shooting a time lapse at say f 2.8, and let's say you finish because it's getting brighter, and you finish at say f 16. Well, every time you click that, it's obviously going to make it darker. And so what LR time lapse does is it evens all of those out and keyframes all
Oh,
of those parameters over time. So instead of seeing like, it getting brighter all of a sudden and seeing that over time, it smooths everything out. So it just gradually gets brighter or darker,
so
depending
you
on what
would
you're
you
doing.
would almost you would almost take the first image, like the first moment of the scene, and then the last moment, set your parameters, your f-stop and your ISO and your shutter speed and whatever else you're going to set on those two, and then it keyframes everything in between.
Yeah, so you
Ah, that's
depending on
cool.
how much yeah, so depending on how much kind of work you want to put in, you set the number of keyframes that you want it to run. And so yeah, I think you can do anywhere from, I think 3 is the minimum, but I think you can go up to like 18 or something. And you can go in and input everything. And you do have to work back and forth between Lightroom and LR time lapse a little bit.
Okay,
So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. But yeah, it's amazing program, and yeah, I've been
that's
working it in
cool.
a while, and I feel like I've still kind of scratched the surface, but it's amazing.
Well, Mike Miller, who's a regular watcher of this channel, asked. He said it sounds like, and I think he's talking about selling stock is a lot of work. Is it worth it? What's your take on? I mean, what obviously it's worth it is always a relative term, right? But what's your take on doing it?
I mean, obviously, I would recommend it because it's really stabilized, especially when I was kind of first getting started in production and stuff. I was kind of getting odd jobs here and there, and my thought was, if I'm living from job to job, I'm always gonna be looking for that next job, and I kind of wanted something to kind of flatten things out and give a little bit more real reliability to my income. And so I saw stock as a way of doing so. And yeah, like it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's time consuming, but it's also fun too because you don't have a client yelling at you. You don't have a shot list. You don't have a boss. Like whenever I travel, I always have a drone with me. I always take my Mavic 2 Pro out, and you don't need a Mavic 2 Pro. Like you can shoot with anything. Um, and but yeah, whenever I traveled back in the good old days, I would always have a drone with me, and I would shoot. And maybe on a trip, I might get a couple hundred clips or even 50 clips, depending on how long I was there shooting for or whatever. Um, but it's just fun, and also adds
Yeah,
to your reel and stuff over
you're
time. And
you're going to be filming anyway, right? If you're like everybody probably in this chat, you're probably going to have a drone with you, and you're probably going to want to shoot. So if you can turn that into a shot and make some money off of it, then that would be
yeah,
pretty
and like
pretty
I
cool.
said, it is time consuming, and it's not super easy, but I think it really is worth it. Like I said, I make 1,500 to 2 grand a month
Yeah,
passively. And again, it's taken me a while to get to this point, um, but it's something that I can pretty heavily rely on, and I know that it's coming in. So if I can relax to some degree if I kind of meet, what I need for the month. And I know I don't have to be hustling for the next job if I know that
yeah,
other money's coming in.
it's
So it's just a way
pretty
of
consistent.
stabilizing. Yeah, it's just a way of stabilizing income. And like I said last year, it definitely helped out. And also it's fun. The metadata and stuff can be a little bit of a drag sometimes, but I mean, I love flying and shooting, and so even editing and coloring it, I still enjoy. And it's the uploading and metadata, like I said, it's a little bit of work, But you do it once and you never have to do it again, and you can make, if it does well, it can make you thousands of dollars over, your lifetime for one clip. So and not all of them are going to do that, but it can. And so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a handful of clips that have done really well, and yeah, it's just you keep shooting and you just keep building off of what you've done prior.
And Mike Miller says he made 25 cents on Shutterstock, and that's kind of, I think, what happens to a lot of people is they get into it, and they maybe get frustrated because it doesn't pay off very quickly, or their clips aren't selling. Not to push too hard, but you really should take Vinny's course, because he teaches you all the stuff about um, not only how to shoot the stuff and how to edit the stuff, but also the metadata, how to label, how to tag things properly so that they get found. I mean, you've experimented a lot, and not just with Shutterstock, but you've done this on several other platforms, right?
Yeah, so I have all of my work on Shutterstock, Adobe Stock, and then Pond 5. I also did video blocks for quite a while, but they shut down maybe 9 months or a year ago or something. And but yeah, so I had 4 sites, and now there's 3. But yeah, getting to, I think you said Mike's point. Yeah, with stock, I really try to focus on video. I have probably 20 photos on there. And the reason behind that is exactly like you mentioned. It's just the payoff, with photos, you make 5, 10, 20 cents a photo, but with clips, I mean, I've sold a couple for like 3, 4, $500 on through those websites, and that's after them taking a pretty big cut.
So they'll
Most of the time,
take half of it or something, or
yeah, depending on
25%.
the site. Yeah.
Okay.
So depending on the site, they do take a pretty good cut, which is a bummer. But that's, they're
Yeah, I mean,
they're doing all the work, they're doing all
it's
the
just like
marketing.
YouTube, it's just like YouTube. So the one thing that I know you don't like to talk about, but I'm going to bring it up. You had a bit of a traumatic experience in Iceland while you were filming. Can you share with the audience what happened to you in Iceland?
Yeah, of course.
Was it cold? Set
It
the
was.
scene.
Yeah, it's always cold in Iceland. Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of the mountain that we were in, because if you guys have been to Iceland, every everything there is 26 characters long, so you can't pronounce anything, and it's
It's a
just
bunch of consonants all in a row, and then these weird symbols. Yeah,
so I have no idea what the name is. I can see it in my mind. It's super famous. It's on,
Kurtajekabakaduk.
yeah, pretty much. um, but when I was there for probably, I think I was there for a little over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I can't remember exactly how long. But we pretty much had, man, for throughout the whole trip, we had one day, and it was probably like a half day. It was probably 4 hours where we saw the sun the entire time I was there.
What time of year was it?
It was in June.
Okay. Wow.
So we tried to go and, plan it around trying to catch some sun, and obviously I know it's Iceland, it's going to be a little chilly, but I was hoping for a little bit more a little bit more sun overall, and unfortunately didn't get it. So we got a lot of rain, and I really only got to fly, I think, like 3 or 4 days, and obviously on the last day it didn't go so well. I was having a bunch of problems when I was there. I don't know if it was something, I don't know, with the gimbal. It was being really weird, and I was having a bunch of problems, and it's like my drone was drunk. It was going all over the place, and it was almost like it didn't have a compass calibration. But I checked that multiple times, and it was okay. So I kind of just kept pushing, and I was in Iceland. I was kind of just wanting to power through it and try to get those shots, and for stock, but also it's just beautiful there, and I wanted to try to shoot a lot. And so there's definitely a couple times where I was pushing my range a little bit, and it was it was aircraft disconnected, that kind of thing, and then kind of hold your fingers crossed, and then it'd come back on, and then you keep flying and do your thing. So the last time I was flying, I was getting some good stuff, and I just kept kind of going a little bit further and a little bit further, and it would disconnect, and then it would start coming back, and so I'd kind of keep pushing a little bit further, and yeah, so finally it got disconnected, and what I think I had done is I was kind of around the corner of a cliff, and so as the crow flies, I wasn't very far, but because I was around the cliff and below it, when I lost connection, it just turned and then flew straight towards me. But there was a mountain. There was a mountain in the way, and
Yeah.
so it crashed and the screen went black, and I was keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that it was.
Could you see the feed as it was coming towards you?
Nah, because it disconnected, and so the screen went black, and then I hit the throttle up to try to kind of raise it up, and it just never came back on. So I was kind of keeping my fingers crossed that maybe at some point it would, it'd kick back on, and I would, bring it back home and probably push my luck again. But yeah, finally it turned off, and it was off for 5-6 minutes, and so finally I was like, all right, well, it's up there. And then my brother and I decided that it would be a great idea to try to climb this mountain.
Yeah, you're from Colorado, right? So
yeah,
Iceland, Colorado, pretty much
no
the same
problem.
thing.
Yeah. So we decided to try to climb this mountain, and I had another buddy from Spain that was there. His name is Joan, and very quickly he bailed, and it was just my brother and I kind of powering through, trying to get up there. And we looked in the guidebook beforehand, and it was, strictly says don't climb this unless you have a local guide, and we're both pretty adventurous, and so we said screw it, we're just gonna power through and try to find this thing. And so we had quite the experience up there. There were 4 different ropes that we had to climb. We only ended up climbing 2 of them.
Oh wow! I mean, it's like that kind of mountain, like that steep.
Yeah, there were multiple edges that were probably 2 to 3 feet wide, and with obviously no rails or anything, winds blowing, that we were walking along, and it's like you look over the edge and there's nothing.
Oh man!
So it's like you go over the edge and that's it. So we were, palms were getting pretty sweaty, and my brother is terrified of heights, and I'm not. I don't know how. I should be at this point, but we were definitely pushing it pretty good. And like I said, there was 2 ropes that we climbed, and it's like you're looking up, and there's this old rickety rope. You kind of tug on it and make sure it's good, and we climbed a couple of them, but you don't know what's up there, and and we were all, we were doing it mainly to find the drone. Eventually we were kind of like, okay, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to find this drone. But then we were there, and so we figured we might as well just keep pushing forward to try to climb this. And so the 3rd rope that we encountered was, we were basically, climbing at an angle, and then part of that angle was just over like a cliff.
How long? I mean, how long did you climb for? How long did you go?
We were up for probably, I don't know, it probably took us round trip, probably 5 hours or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So
it was not like a short little jaunt up the mountain to try to find it. It was,
so probably more time to go up than down, I would guess, but maybe 3
yeah.
hours up and 2 hours back down.
Yeah, so it was a lot. It was a good chunk of time. So we definitely pushed our luck, and yeah, it was. We got some incredible views, and we did a couple other climbs when we were there that were amazing and beautiful, and everything. And
the drone is gone.
Memorable because yeah, he's not quite as. I'll give him a little credit. He's not as adventurous as we are, but he's kind of a wuss too. So
no, but I meant the drone. The drone is.
Yeah, the drone's still there. It was a little bit frustrating because with my remote and my iPad, I could still see it was still reading a GPS signal, so I could see.
You can see where it was.
Yeah, I could see where it was, and it's the mountain's here, and it says it's here, so it's not obviously super exact.
Still had power though.
Yeah, so it still had power, and it was still on, and so it was still emitting a signal, and so I knew it was kind of on the backside. But as we were climbing up, there was just, when we kind of started hooking around, it started getting real hairy, and so we just kind of eventually decided to keep going up as opposed to going around, and pretty much gave up maybe an hour and a half or so in to try to find the thing, excuse me, and just tried to say screw it and let's have a good time and climb. So we did. I got a good story out of it, but yeah, the Phantom 4 Pro with my name on it is still on top of that mountain. So
I remember when you were going to Iceland, because we were working together at that point, and you were
yeah,
you were telling me, yeah, I'm going to Iceland, and you're like, oh, of course I'm taking a drone. I'm like, what are you taking, the Mavic, or are you taking the Mavic Mini? I don't know if the Mini
gotta
was
go
out at that
big,
point, but yeah, and you were like, no, I'm taking the Phantom.
And I had a full backpacker's backpack full of clothes, and then I had more or less the same thing full of drones, and I had batteries and NDs and
Yeah.
like the cover. So I had two big bags, and one of them was just all camera gear. So I got some good stuff, but yeah, unfortunately, I had a little extra space on the way home.
Did you have any trouble? Did you have any trouble traveling with all that? And did Iceland? What were the regulations like in Iceland? Just out of curiosity.
They were. I definitely checked beforehand just to kind of comply with everything. They were overall they're really relaxed about flying just kind of in general areas. Obviously, if you can't fly in cities and whatnot, but if you're just out and about, you can fly. There's all of a majority of kind of the big tourist attractions. You can't fly. They have big no fly zone signs and everything. Um, but yeah, if you get away from those huge kind of tourist traps, and usually they're a tourist trap for a reason, but if you get away from those, yeah, you can kind of fly wherever you want. They're pretty relaxed. There's just so much space, so it's
And
not a
and and the terrain there is pretty like, are there? I mean, I my vision of it is a lot of rocks and a lot of ice and a lot of mountains, kind of maybe like I don't know, Scotland or Montana or someplace where there's just not a lot of trees, or were there a lot of trees?
yeah. There's really not a lot of trees. A lot of rock, a lot of waterfalls.
Yeah.
Didn't have to watch out for those, but I've never seen so many waterfalls in my entire life. It's crazy. But yeah, overall the terrain, yeah, not a whole lot of trees, just a lot of rocks and short grass. So there's not much to
Very
run
easy
into
to
as
fly,
far as
right?
yeah. So
Pretty.
there's not yeah.
And you still lost
Besides
your drone. Like, there's no trees,
yeah.
there's no people, no power lines, and Vinny still loses his drone. Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I was pushing pretty hard trying to get those shots, and I paid for it, unfortunately. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it makes a good story. Did you end up turning that into DJI, turning in the report
I
or
did
whatever?
actually. So the other times when I flew in Iceland and I was recording, um, I documented all of those problems that I was having with the gimbal, and so I kind of put together a short little video. As the trip progressed, I pulled those off and dumped all that footage, and then next time I'd fly, I'd do the same. And so I had kind of a little reel of when all those problems occurred. And so because of that, I put that together and sent it to DJI and said, hey, this happened and this happened, and here's a video. And I think my compass was going wrong, and I was calibrating. I was doing the vision sensors and the compass, and it was still doing this. And they ended up agreeing with me and sending me a new one. So
Oh,
it
wow.
it worked out. So
You don't hear that very often.
yeah, yeah. So I got lucky, but
Joe
um,
Blaylock said, and I think he's right. As you travel from someplace like Texas, pretty far south, closer to the equator, that far north, you're gonna see more compass and kind of magnetic north is obviously in a different place there, et cetera. So it's interesting that.
yeah, I was definitely, I kind of considered that. I was like, I wonder if it's some kind of magnetic, now that I'm farther north, and I didn't know if that was the problem. I did some research after and couldn't find a whole lot of, you know, writing on it, but yeah, that was definitely something I considered. So who knows at this point, but yeah, it's a great point.
But DJI did send you a new drone. Did they send you a new controller and everything, or in a battery, or just the drone without a
Just
battery?
the drone, yeah, because I still had
Okay.
the remote, and I bought my iPad, and so yeah, it was just the drone. But yeah, they gave me a fresh
Yeah.
one, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, um, we're at the hour mark, and as I always say, I'd like to try and keep this at an hour.
Cool.
So Vinny, I really appreciate you hopping in.
Yeah, of course.
If anybody's interested in checking out your class about doing stock, it's vinniefallico.com/courses, right?
Yep, that's the
And
one.
you can get the spelling in the title of this video. So Vinny
Yeah.
with two L's. Um, and I also have a secret about Vinny that most people don't know that I'm going to
Oh
tell.
God.
Uh, so uh, for those of you that don't know, Vinny is the guitarist behind
Oh.
the Ready Set Drone song. So
That's right.
I played rhythm. I just played the like four chords. It's just like C C G D, whatever. And Vinny played the lead, and he took the recording that I did and then mixed it for me and did a great job. For those of you who know the original version of the song, that was him playing the lead. That was him. Didn't you add a little piano or organ or something in there too?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm trying to remember what I did now. It's been a while since I've listened to it. But yeah, it's put together a little thing. It was pretty fun.
yeah. So if you like the Ready Set Drone song, the original version, that was Vinny had a big part of that. And then of course Sunrise Water Media is in the house. He did a remix of it. I don't know. Have you heard that one, Vinny? It's a little more
Which one
techno
was that?
sounding. It's the one that sounds like They Might Be Giants.
I don't know if I've heard that one. I heard like there was a rap one and a thrash metal one. I don't know
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
I've heard both.
There's lots of versions, and I appreciate. We had a
Yeah.
contest actually, but yeah, Vinny was the guitarist on that. So again, man, thank you again. Thank you for all the help that you've
Yeah, of
given
course.
me,
Thanks for having me.
helping with this channel over the years, and again, you should go check out his class, or at the very least, go check out his website. He does not just drone stuff, but fashion photography, a lot of industrial stuff. I mean, just all kinds of different photos and video stuff. So very talented dude. I'm lucky to know him.
Thanks,
So
man. I appreciate
yeah. So Joe Blaylock says magnetic because of the iron in the rock. That could actually be
it. Yeah,
kind of like
maybe.
when there's rebar into the cement. So
Yeah,
thank
makes
you guys. Mike Miller says share a link to his course. I
sense.
can you do that, Vinny? Are you in the chat?
I don't. Let's see here.
Hold on. Let
I'm
me
not
see if I
pretty
can.
sure how to do that.
Vinnie Fallico.com
Yeah,
/courses.
it's
That
Vinnie
should be it.
Vinnie, and then Fallico is my last name, Fallico
Yeah, there we go.
.com
I,
/courses.
I got it in the chat. So if you guys want to check it out, go check it out there. So hopefully that will be helpful to someone if they want to get more into it. But I think the big thing with stock is it's a long game. You can't think
Yeah.
about it as something you're not going to be making $1,000 a month after a year. Maybe after 2 years. How long did it take you to make your first month where you made $1,000? Do you remember?
No, it definitely took a little while. I think it was maybe a year and a half or something like that. I don't totally remember, but usually what I kind of break everything down, and I do this in the course is, for every clip that you have on there, you will typically make between 50 cents and $1 per month with that clip. Not saying that those clips will sell for that much, but overall,
That's what you'll
so
take home. That's what you learn.
so if you have if you have 1,000 clips on there, you can expect to earn $750 to $1,000 a month, as just like kind of a general ballpark rule. But yeah, obviously the more you have, the more diversity that you have in there is better. For me, I mainly have aerial work in there. I find that's kind of, at least when I really got into this, was a little bit of a hole in the market, and so I kind of saw an opportunity there, and kind of, I think, capitalized on it. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
more than I'm missing, but yeah, I think it's totally worth people's time. And again, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's also fun. I love flying and shooting and putting things together. And if you're not working on a project, it's like, why not go out and shoot and post it up and make some money? So passively. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer, but it is work. So
Mike Miller was asking how long the clips usually are. Like, what are the length of the clips typically?
Anywhere from 8 to 10 to 15 seconds, something like that. So it doesn't have to be
Per clip. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be crazy long. I think on some of the sites, there's definitely a minimum. I think a lot of them have to be over 5 seconds, if I remember right, 5 or 6 seconds. And but yeah, I usually aim for 10 to 15, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, and you and I were talking about this. It was interesting, and then I'll let you go. But you know, 4K. You probably want to shoot in 4K as often as you can, so you have that really good source material. But you said most of the clips you sell are still 1080, right?
Yeah, I would say at at least 80% um, of my work that sells online is almost 80% is HD still, and but I still post it as 4K, just to kind of future proof my work.
Yeah.
And at some point 4K is going to be HD, and then it's going to be 6K or 8K. So
Yeah.
um, but I think shooting in 4K and posting in 4K just gives your portfolio a little bit longer lifespan.
But just don't, if you do have a good clip and it happens to only be in 1080, don't be frustrated by that, because 1080 clips is what you were saying, is they're still selling well. I think the big thing
Yeah.
too is most people are doing this for online video, for YouTube and for social media and for stuff like that. And 4K isn't necessary for that yet. And also, I think those services like Pond5 and Shutterstock, they charge a premium for 4K. So it could go from $70 to $200 for the clip, right?
Yeah, exactly. And on Pond5, you can also set the price of your clips. They don't On Shutterstock and Adobe Stock, they determine the price just given the quality. On Pond5, you can set the price. So you can
Hmm.
set it if you get, a 1 in a million shot of a blue whale jumping, or, whatever, something crazy. You can post it up there for whatever you want. And if someone buys it, then someone buys it.
Good
So,
on you. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool, man. Well, again, Vinny, good to see you. If you guys haven't checked it out, I put the link in there. Go check out his class. Also, be sure to go check out the video of Wesley. No, I'm going to call him Wes. Screw it.
Just roll with it at this point.
We hung out all day. I'm going to call him Wes. Of his mountain biking excursion and our fun chasing him. If I started a stock drone video site, it would be me crashing into trees. It would just be that's if you're looking for a drone crashing into a tree, come to my stock site and
Kelly's
you can
got you.
find it right there. Yeah, I got you covered. Anyway, hey man, Joe Blaylock, Sunrise Water Media, As the Crow Flies, Mike Miller, Chris Hope, Michael Wright, Brad, all you guys. Gosh, Lone Star, UAV, Kai. Thank you guys for joining in, and thanks for the super chats. Jaybird, appreciate the $5 super chat earlier, and Artco, thank you as well, and of course Joe Blaylock, 1 2 3 4, baby. All right, any final words for these folks before we go?
No, I guess good luck flying, and with regards to the stock class, if you guys have any questions, I think my email's on there, so feel free to shoot me an email and fire away if you have any questions. And otherwise, good luck and keep flying.
Cool. Take care, guys. Thanks to everyone for coming in, and I'll see you next week. Next week, I will have Cornell Herg. He was supposed to actually be on this week. Thanks to Vinny for stepping in kind of last minute. But Cornell is the director of marketing for Emacs. We'll be talking about the brand new Emacs Baby Hawk HD, which some of you guys have seen footage in my review of. And I am really trying to get him to give one away on the show. I can't make